Hi, I'm Morgan.
And I'm Jake, and this is
Neverland Navigation Radio.
where we delve into the moderate resorts at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's not a lot.
No, there's super few, actually, only 4. And Disney also, lumps...
And that's a little debatable, right? When I said 4 earlier, you were thinking 3, right?
Yes, because Port
Technically,
Orleans...
yeah.
Yeah, it's 2, but it's the same.
I think there's an argument for splitting up Coronado into 2 also.
For sure. And Disney also considers the Fort Wilderness
Campgrounds
as part of this category.
Do they?
I think so. We are not going to be including that in this discussion because we have maintained that is its own thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's its own thing. I can't even.
Yeah.
Okay. They must be talking about the cabins,
Yeah.
right? But the cabins are... Yeah, it's its own thing. It's more expensive. They house more people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if they're talking about the having a campground, a spot, you know what I mean? That's also totally its own.
Totally its own. And thing. I mean, way cheaper, but because you're literally getting a piece of ground.
Right.
You're getting a parking spot.
Yeah, it's not the same. No matter how many Halloween dechrations you put on it, it's not the same.
I like it. It's just not, it doesn't fit into this category, in my personal opinion.
Right. So if you're not familiar, chronologically here, Caribbean Beach, Port Orleans, both Port Orleans, French Quarter, and Riverside. And then Coronado Springs are the resorts that we will be considering for this category.
Cool. I can't wait to get into it.
Absolutely. Before we do get into it, though, we did want to let everybody know, if you're on a listening platform like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, first of all, thank you for listening. But if you'd like to see our smiling faces, we also record a visual version of the podcast on our YouTube channel, Neverland Navigation Co., and you can check us out there every week. If you're on a listening platform, thank you so much for listening along. We would love it if you would subscribe to the show if you're interested so that you can see when we post new episodes. And if you feel like leaving us a review, letting us know if you enjoyed the episode, then we would love to hear from you there as well.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about taking a vacation, either a Disney vacation or a cruise vacation, Universal, really whatever, I am a travel agent that's free to you. Just send me an email at neverlandnavigationco@gmail.com and we can discuss it. I can help as much or as little as you want. And either way, you get free gifts from our Etsy shop as a thank you, because I get paid commission from the travel place, but you still get the best deal that you could get yourself. So it's kind of a win-win. You can get either free trip t-shirts or free attraction posters from our Etsy shop. So that's something to bear in mind. neverlandnavigationco@gmail.com.
Nice. Yeah. Morgan is a fantastic travel planner. I definitely recommend anyone planning a trip to consider utilizing her services. And I love that you're the co-host of this podcast for moments like this, because these resorts that we're talking about are popular with guests.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of them would value your opinion on, which room categories or which ones in general they might consider for their needs. So hopefully by listening to this episode and you giving your opinion, they might have a better idea of, what they might want to do next time they're considering a moderate.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Before we get into individuals, do you think I could take a minute to talk about kind of the pros and cons of a moderate versus something else?
Let's talk about what is a moderate.
So yeah, that's great. So Disney has value, moderate, and deluxe, right? And then the campgrounds, which we think is its own thing.
Yes.
So a value resort will have a room. They all just have a room. You know what I mean? Unless you're getting into the suites and stuff like that. But for the purpose of comparison, let's just talk about the studio type room that you would get. So the moderate resorts have better pool situations where they've got a slide and a hot tub, right? And then as far as the rooms go, they are all about the same size, whether you get a value, a moderate, or a deluxe. But the moderate resorts can accommodate 5 sometimes.
Right.
So that's a huge thing for our listeners to know, for anybody thinking, if you've got a family of 5 and one of them is not like an infant or a child that's able to sleep in a pack and play,
Hmm.
then you're going to need something bigger than a studio room.
Right.
And the only option in value is the like Lion King family suite type room, but then price wise, you're over the cost of a moderate. So having what's called a fifth sleeper at a moderate resort is something to consider. Then you would get 2 queen beds and then a bed that kind of like folds out, a single bed.
Yes, and
Yeah.
there are fifth sleeper options at
Yeah.
some of the moderates, including
Caribbean Beach for sure. I just booked one.
right, Caribbean Beach. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, I know that there are others as well. But
All of those Little Mermaid under the sea rooms, those are all fifth sleepers. I want to say everything in that Trent.
You mean at Art of Animation?
Nope, I mean Caribbean.
Oh,
Beach.
at Caribbean Beach.
And I want to say
Yeah.
those are in the what Trinidad building. Or
I don't know
something?
that.
Yeah, one
I
of
don't
those.
know.
But anything that's under the sea should be. Fifth
Yeah.
sleeper,
Okay. It's so confusing that they made a Little Mermaid section of Art of Animation and a Little Mermaid section of Caribbean
I
Beach.
know, and I get that it fits both, but also
It does,
how
yeah.
confusing for
I know.
people trying to book the Little Mermaid room and not knowing which
Yes,
resort.
exactly.
Like,
Oh gosh. Okay.
this is like Wilderness Lodge, Animal Kingdom Lodge,
Yeah.
all over again.
The last time that I personally have stayed at Caribbean Beach, it was still the pirate rooms, which Jake will get into in a minute. Then now they are now Little Mermaid rooms.
Mhm.
So when you say Little Mermaid, I immediately picture Art of Animation Little Mermaid room because
Yeah.
I've stayed there.
They have a Little Mermaid building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a huge statue.
Right.
But anyway, so the pools are a little. The pools are different. The rooms have the option for the fifth sleeper, which is awesome. In a lot of the moderates, there is a ceiling fan,
Mhm.
which is a big deal to some people. For me, I can't sleep without some sort of fan, but I have found that online I can buy a travel fan,
Mhm.
and it gives me the white noise that I need and the air circulation that I need.
All right.
So that serves me well if I'm staying at a value resort or if I'm staying on a cruise, because you can find them where they're USB charging. You charge with USB, which means you can take it on a cruise.
Good tip for
Yeah.
you fan sleepers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. And a lot of us from Florida, I think, are fan sleepers, although a lot of people from everywhere are fan sleepers.
You can count me amongst you. I cannot
Yeah.
sleep without a fan. The air circulation is a must.
Yes,
for me.
yes, yes, exactly. I don't think I can really say that a pro is transportation anymore because while Caribbean Beach is on the Skyliner loop, and that's a major, major plus, Coronado is not. And Art of Animation, which is and Pop Century, which technically values, they are also on the Skyliner loop. So it's like some of the moderates have a specialty transportation, but not all of them. Also, the bus situation in a moderate is a bit of a con.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your bus is going from, let's say, Epcot to a value resort, it goes from Epcot to that value resort and there's one drop off and that's that. If it's going to Coronado, it's going to take, or Caribbean Beach or whatever, it's going to go to multiple stops within that hotel.
Yeah.
Which makes it potentially take considerably longer.
Yeah, it gets to be a little tedious, huh?
Yes.
And you feel that when you're on the bus.
Yes. Caribbean Beach, however, does have the best Skyliner stop because it's the only one that has that's like where if you're going from Hollywood Studios to Epcot, that's where you would change Skyliner vehicles.
Yeah. It's the hub of
Yes.
the Skyliner line.
Yes, exactly. So you can get on going direct to either Hollywood Studios or Epcot from Caribbean Beach. Whereas if you were at Riviera, you would need to for one or the other. I can't remember which. I think it's to get to Epcot. You would need to transfer at the hub. Mm-hmm. So more convenient if you're at Caribbean Beach.
It's true.
Those are and the having a sit down restaurant is also a pro for the moderate. Although I don't know that I consider it a pro.
Depending on the restaurant.
We've eaten at a few restaurants at moderates that were less than stellar. So my advice is probably going to be to go to a different resort to eat. Let me think. There are a few good ones in our list that I'm sure we'll get to, but
yes.
Yeah.
But that's something that differentiates them from values.
Yeah.
Values have a food court.
And that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And at the moderate, they have food court plus some type of sit-down dining.
Right. And generally some sort of lounge. I almost said upscale,
Mm-hmm.
not pool lounge. I mean, I think they have that too. I think they have
Yes.
that too,
Mm-hmm.
but also like Scat Cats,
Right.
which
Like,
we'll definitely talk about.
yeah. Can't talk about Port Orleans without talking about Sky Cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lounge situation is definitely part of the amenity package there. All right. So
So
now,
that's kind of like giving you an idea of what's what.
yeah, what differentiates the tiers? And um, the tiers are something that was established in the 80s, the late 80s, when Michael Eisner was moving into the company and changing things at the theme parks and was considering how to expand the resort offerings. And the first one was Caribbean Beach, the first in
And
the like
and
set of moderates.
yeah, and it's interesting because the first value was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing at that time they knew they were going to do a value option, you think?
Perhaps, yeah.
We're just guessing. We don't, I mean,
I think that's a reasonable thing to
assumption.
assume for
Yeah.
sure, especially since after the success of the moderates, I mean, they were one successful after the other. But the Caribbean Beach was the first in that line of successes, and the idea was that, like we were saying, they were going to have a deluxe resort amenity and feel, but at a more affordable price point, and that was kind of the inspiration for the whole tier of resorts. And when Caribbean Beach opened, it was a huge, it wasn't unimpressive. It was a large resort, one of the largest in Florida, and it was the first Disney resort to have bus transportation within the resort to get you from one
Yeah.
building to the other. So that and it had 6 pools, which like spoke to like the scope of the project. So for being not a deluxe resort, it still had all these, fancy bells and whistles that people came to expect from a Disney offering.
Yeah.
Uh,
And this theming makes a lot of sense for the first moderate resort, don't you think?
yeah,
A lot of people are coming to Florida and they want like a beachy getaway, but they want to go to Disney World.
right,
This kind of gives you that feel without going to the beach.
right, definitely,
I'm
yeah,
sure that was their plan.
yes, and the Polynesian was so successful.
Yeah.
It's not the same type of vibe, but it's the same idea of having
Yeah.
like a beachy kind of.
That way, if probably, especially back then, before Disney was as well known for being the place to go in Florida, if somebody was like, "Oh, you're going to Florida and you're not going to the beach," you know what I mean? It's
Mm,
kind of like, well, we kind of are.
yeah, because there's no beaches in Orlando. Some people don't know that when they're
I
visiting for the
know.
first time, but it's true.
I think it's because I think it's very confusing that the cruise port is considered the Orlando cruise port, even though it's over an hour away from Orlando.
Yes, Port Canaveral.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, that is interesting. But this definitely offers that beachy atmosphere, and they built a man-made body of water, as Disney loves to do, Barefoot Bay, which the resort kind of surrounded. So it kind of gave you that beachy feel with some artificial beaches there, without necessarily being on the coast, as we were talking about. But the theming, I think, is really what sells it, like the bright colors and the beachy details, the rattan everywhere, really drives it home. Like I was saying, this was after the first batch of Disney hotels, the Contemporary, the Poly, Fort Wilderness, and then Shades of Green Golf Resort. There wouldn't be another new hotel for 15 years. 15 years of no new Disney hotels. I don't
Yeah.
think we could even imagine that
And
now.
so what year did you say this was? Is this post
Caribbean,
Epcot?
Caribbean Beach, 1988. So
Okay,
yes, we
yes.
are in a post
Oh,
Epcot
and post
world.
Hollywood Studios.
And post
Is that
Hollywood
right?
Studios. I thought that was, is that 1989?
Was it? I was thinking 87.
I think it might be 89.
Here, I'll look it up. You go ahead.
Okay, but definitely post Epcot. Um, so yeah, this was a big deal. And the Caribbean Beach, I will say, this resort is one of the ones that has gone most unchanged since its openings. It's had some additions. Like in 2009, they added pirate rooms. So
89, you're right.
89, okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about this a bit, but the pirate rooms are like a special section of the Caribbean Beach Resort that they were in 2009. They introduced them. They were inspired by the movie and the attraction. And now they are under the sea themed.
They were very cool. Like I said, that's the last time that I've stayed at Caribbean Beach was
Mm-hmm.
when, because it wasn't that long ago either in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the beds, like the headboard looked like the masts of the ship, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it had, I hate the shower curtain divider, but that it had that, and had a piratey look to
In
it.
lieu of a door
Yes,
to the
dividing
shower.
the bathroom, like the sinks from the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, not in.
Oh, sorry. Shouldn't have said shower. I
Yes.
know what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
The like
The
the
sinks.
sinks.
Yeah.
Yes. Um.
Sink and mirror.
Yeah. But anyway, those rooms were very cool. Do you know why they decided to take them down?
I don't think Disney gave like a public specific reason about why they changed.
Okay, my dad was asking if it was because of all of the drama that happened with Johnny Depp, and I was like, I don't think so.
I don't know. If it was, I don't think they would tell
They
us.
wouldn't, right?
You know, that would
Okay.
be an internal decision.
I was
But
kind of hoping you had stumbled across an actual reason, although not that you'd ever know, you
no,
know?
they don't even give reasons when they rename entire resorts, as we'll get into shortly. They don't say anything. But
Right, but we can kind of figure it out.
we can kind of figure it out. And honestly, though, Pirates of the Caribbean, as in 2009, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies were still at a height of popularity, I
Yeah,
would say, and
right.
mainstream consciousness. Now I think maybe we've fallen off of that a little bit, and The Little Mermaid continues to be super relevant with its remake and with everything. There's even a new Disney Junior Little Mermaid show. It just feels like Little Mermaid
Yeah.
is always kind of reinventing its own relevance and the pop culture consciousness. So I don't know. For me, it makes sense for them to, if they're going to go based on popularity of IP, to maybe go for Little Mermaid right now. However, I think it was cool to have. I always think it's cool when attractions are represented
Yes, I
in
know,
the
exactly.
resorts because you are at Walt Disney World.
That's what I liked about it. It wasn't
Yeah.
that they were representing the movie. To me, it wasn't about the movie. It was about the ride.
Right.
And how cool is that?
I agree. Yeah, so that is, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But they are under the sea theme now, and hey, they are Fit Sleeper and they are super renovated. So hey, at least you've got a nice room renovation
Mm-hmm.
out of the situation. Although they are not as playfully themed as the Pirates rooms were.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
I think a lot of the modern renovations get that criticism as well.
Okay.
Some other changes to the resort were that in 2018, Sebastian's Bistro opened, the restaurant that's there, the current sit-down bistro
Is
restaurant.
that Sebastian like from Little Mermaid now, or?
Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
Right. And also now, like we were discussing, Caribbean is the hub of the Disney Skyliner, which is honestly a great value to have added to your moderate resort. It is available, as you were saying, to some of the values as well. But if you were a Caribbean fan before, I'm sure you weren't hurt by the fact that now you can just walk to Epcot or Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
The most recent change came with this Under the Sea retheme of the Pirates rooms, but also when the Riviera Resort was constructed, they knocked down two of the Caribbean buildings to build the Riviera, which I didn't know. I thought they had built the Riviera right next to the Caribbean,
Yeah.
and that was kind of the end of it in my mind. I hadn't visited the Caribbean very much at that point. But it turns out they like knocked down a bunch of it to build Riviera. Has that ever been done? Are they knocking down stuff to build new hotels?
No, I know.
Often?
I don't think so, because why would you? You know
So
what
interesting.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they must have.
That
for whatever
DVC
reason,
money must have been wonderful.
They have so much land. I don't understand why they would need to knock down some buildings to create more space. So, do you know if those buildings were completely demolished, or if they just used the bones of the building and continued?
Completely demolished to the floor.
Wow.
Yeah, because the Riviera is very distinct in its,
right. Makes me wonder. Yeah, I think that's got to be one-time thing. I don't really understand why they decided to do that, but
yeah, that's why I put it in my notes, because when I came across it, it stood out to me, because that's normally not something Disney, it seems like, they would do.
And I knew that they were under construction. The last time we stayed there, they were under construction, and Sebastian's, or what was there before Sebastian's, I'm not quite sure, was closed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if that was why, if that was why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It, yeah, we knew there was pixie dust. We didn't know why. Interesting.
Sebastian's has been refurbished recently as well.
Okay.
And also, speaking of refurbishments, last year, all non Under the Sea rooms did receive a round of refurbishments.
Oh,
So
good.
if you're considering staying at the Caribbean, you can rest assured that they're finished with their big refurbishment project that they had going on there over the past couple years.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Do you have any general thoughts on the Caribbean? When you think of the resort, what do you think? Let me tell you something I think right
Okay.
off the top of my head. I think the buildings are painted an ugly color. And
I think they faded to an ugly color.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is too, is that maybe they were once beautiful,
Yeah.
and now the mixing of what is faded and what is not faded
Yeah.
is not pretty.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The colors do kind of give me that like Nassau, Bahamas kind of like when you sail into a place like that
Yes,
vibe.
corals and
Yeah,
warm yellows and purples and stuff. Yeah, I
right.
get that.
Yeah, but it does seem like some fading has happened, which I find very interesting because Disney invests a lot of money in figuring out what paints are going to survive what weather. So I don't know if that was the intention,
Yeah, I don't know, but
but
they do. It just lends a little bit more of a dated look to the entire
I
property.
agree. That's and so when you said that it was the first one, I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
same. When I saw
Yeah.
that, I was like, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
cool that the interiors have all been renovated. That means, that's going to make a huge difference in your
Mm.
staying experience. Um, as far as the outside goes, I haven't been that impressed. But that being said, the fact that it's the hub of the Skyliner gives it major points.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do think it's nice that they have the amenity of having that bay there with the artificial beaches.
Yeah,
I
they do
know,
that a lot.
yes, that is a pretty common thing, and I know it's not like a highlight for a lot of people, but I
And it's
think
also not safe to go in. So bear in mind.
the water,
Yes.
not the beach.
No, you can go lay on the beach or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's fine.
Yeah, lay in the hammock. I'm just saying, like, I could see, I guess not now. I guess everybody knows
And they're
now.
fenced. There's a fence in between the water and the on the Barefoot Bay. There's a fence between the beach and the water. You can't.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you can't go in. I don't know about Polly,
Hmm.
but at Caribbean Beach, all along Barefoot Bay, there's like a nice little rope fence that separates you from getting into the
A
water.
rope fence. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well,
Don't hop that. Don't go in there.
yeah.
Stay out of the lakes.
Um, yeah. I just think that, I don't know. I definitely want to try staying there again now that I know about the Little Mermaid rooms.
Yeah, I think I would like to stay there. It might be
Yeah.
interesting. I've visited a few times. I'm just not I'm not as I know some people really love this. Like this is their home resort. Like they really love this resort. I
Yeah.
know there are people out there for the Caribbean like that. So hey, but I don't know if that fits into where I would prefer to stay amongst the moderate resorts. But I'm not going to say that there's no reason to stay, especially with these renovated rooms, with these Little Mermaid fifth sleeper rooms, under the sea rooms. I think those are all, and with the Skyliner, like we were talking about, it's got its advantages.
Yeah, and then price wise, we are in the high 200s, low 300s per night. This is just me putting in random dates in January.
Okay.
So obviously, I've seen it lower than 250 to be honest, but that was with a pass holder rate. That could have been a last minute kind of
Right.
thing. And then I've seen it a little higher. If you're doing a preferred room, it's going to be even higher. But like for this random day in January that I looked at, because these are just the dates I was looking at for my last client,
Mm-hmm.
a standard view fifth sleeper is running at 280 per night.
Right.
So that's like about $100 more than the value, since it's on the Skyliner hub and the rooms are recently renovated, and then especially if you've got a fifth family member going, I would say that feels like a good value for a moderate.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, I don't know since they are renovated rooms, I think that helps a little bit as well. You
Right.
can
Before they were
guarantee
renovated, I'm not sure I would have paid this amount.
exactly. That's the renovation. I think helps justify that price tag.
And the
Um,
Skyliner. And before the Skyliner, which is relatively recently,
mhm.
this I wonder if they were having a hard time selling these.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really a huge bonus to have such direct access to the parks, and
It's wild. I mean, it's like a huge, huge, huge bonus. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's actually a reason why the next one that we're going to talk about, the next set of these, is not it loses some points for
Yes.
its connectivity to the rest of the resort, and that's Port Orleans. Both sides are like there's water transportation to Disney Springs, which is
It
great,
lovely. Yes.
wonderful.
If you get to experience this, whether you stay at Port Orleans or not, it's
Hmm.
wonderful. And you can go to Disney Springs and take the boat to go get a beignet or walk around Port
For
Orleans
free.
for
The
free.
beignet is not
Yes.
free, but the boat is free.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that's a lovely experience that we highly recommend.
absolutely, 100%.
But yeah, but if you're taking a vacation, you're probably not super worried about transportation to Disney Springs like you are to the
Yeah,
parks.
it's not like people consider Disney Springs of equal importance
Right.
on their vacation to the theme parks.
Or needing to get there like in a speedy way. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Hop on the boat and get there immediately.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, maybe you're late for your dinner reservation. Honestly, the boats take a while, though.
The boats do take a while. What did we say? About 20 minutes,
Yeah,
right?
at
It doesn't
least.
feel like 20 minutes, but I think that when I looked it up, it was 20 minutes.
Yeah. I
Okay, so
recorded the whole thing. I could look it up.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Port Orleans has a very interesting history. I'm excited to hear you talk about. But as of today, there are, Jake's gonna get into the history, but as of today, there's one section that's called Port Orleans French Quarter and one that's called Port Orleans Riverside, and they are booked separately. They are priced differently.
mhm.
They have different sit down restaurants. They both have just the boat service to Disney Springs.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's any other differences. They have different pools, but I'm pretty sure if you stay at one, you can go to the pool at another. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Okay. That's just my like filling in about how things are today.
Yeah, the differences between the two,
Yeah.
in case you're considering the differences between the two. Yeah,
Well, the theming is wildly different. I guess I really should have mentioned that. But you're going to get into theming when you go into the history a little bit.
yeah.
But I will say that Port Orleans French Quarter I love,
Hmm.
and Port Orleans Riverside I do not love.
Yeah,
So
I feel similarly. It might be a matter of personal preference, or the fact that to me, Port Orleans Riverside just feels like the rest of Florida, and Port Orleans French Quarter feels so New
yeah,
Orleans to me.
yeah. I had a really negative experience at Riverside fairly recently, like within the last, I don't know, 4 years.
Mm.
And it was just bad. The air conditioning unit was one of those units that was attached to the window, and
Mhm.
it was like crazy, insanely loud. There was another problem I can't remember. I just like it. Things kept adding up to make this just a horrific experience,
That's
and the
awful.
rooms seemed really dated.
Yeah, that's a pretty that sucks.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to step into a hotel room that you've paid your pretty penny for and feeling, like maybe it hasn't been touched in maybe a decade.
yeah,
That's a tough pill to swallow. But when Port Orleans opened, they were like, it was a pretty big deal. They were coasting on the popularity of Caribbean Beach being huge at the time. People were very wild for the price point, which is understandable because the other hotels are kind of expensive.
crazy expensive.
Right. So it's nice to open up the. They wanted to get more than just that family that was having a deluxe vacation.
Yeah,
They wanted to, open things up resort wise to letting people stay on property even if they're not paying those super big price tags. And the the idea to open Port Orleans was actually not the first time a New Orleans themed resort had been proposed in Walt Disney World. In 1982, Dick Nunez, who was Walt Disney World's executive vice president at the time, he gave an interview where he basically proposed a new development near the Empress Lily in the Lake Buena Vista shopping village, which is now Disney Springs. And he envisioned a two-story resort themed to New Orleans with a built-in dining and entertainment complex. So that was where this idea started, but
Mm.
the 80s became a rocky financial point for Disney. They were like going to get bought potentially. So they scrapped the idea because it was too expensive, but it didn't get wasted because that same theory was reimagined as the boardwalk in the 90s. That like double story entertainment dining complex idea. So Port Orleans kind of seemed like it was never going to get built. But then in 1988, the Caribbean Beach Resort opened and it was a smashing success, selling out all of its rooms. And the same team of architects would be tapped to develop Disney's next moderate, which would bring back that New Orleans theme. So no good idea goes to waste. And this time it was going to be not within, but just down the river from the Disney Village Marketplace. So at least it gets built.
Little 20-minute jaunt.
Yes, that man made river is the Sasagula River. It's completely man made, 2.5 mile waterway, and it's named that because that's the Native American word for Mississippi,
Oh, okay.
which I did not know.
I didn't know that.
So Port Orleans Resort first opened to the public on May 17th, 1991, and that's the resort we currently now know as the French Quarter. And then further down the river, Disney's Dixie Landings Resort opened on February 2nd, 1992, so a year later. And that resort was themed around a cotton plantation and featured the rustic styled Alligator Bayou Lodge buildings until in phase two, they also opened the Magnolia Bend Mansion buildings, which are like the white, more kind of like sophisticated buildings on the property, I guess. They're a little bit more deluxe. So you had your two separate resorts until 2001 when both of the resorts merged to form one large resort, Port Orleans. And the reason was that we don't know. The reason was never officially announced.
Well,
but most people assume it was because of Dixie Landing's backstory as being a cotton plantation in the South and that being like a prickly subject, obviously.
they went. Sorry, go ahead. Do you have more on this?
Um, the two sections had always been managed by the same management team, and they were basically treated as one resort by Disney because of their proximity to each other. But after this, they completely removed all of the old Dixie Landings, street names, signage,
Yeah.
any references at all. So that was kind of the end of things.
I saw something when I was digging around about this information and the change from Dixie Landing to Riverside, and found that they put out a newsletter and always have called the Sasagola something.
Yes.
Yes, and
Times, I think.
yeah, and it's changed names a few times, but they if you see that or if you read some of these newsletters from the 90s, then you can see a contradiction in like dates and stuff. When at first they were trying to place a backstory that included the family creating the cotton, what is it, mill or something, that like a backstory, like, hey, we just want to put this out there. This family that's part of the backstory, they created this, not that it was built by or ran by slave labor. Yeah.
Right.
But that some of the dates that they put in the backstory contradicted with dates that were in the newsletter. So people have really dug to figure this out.
Yeah. And also, who's reading that? That's not changing anyone's mind.
Right.
They're still going to face the same perception problem that they were facing before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They even changed some of the signage and changed some of the dates on the signage before just changing everything completely.
Interesting.
Like they changed something from 1850 to 1875, and yeah,
they were doing their best.
Yeah, we'll just make these little changes so that there's no way somebody could say that it has anything to do with slave labor, but it was still too close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Definitely makes sense. So the
And I think
combined,
it still has those vibes.
I definitely think it still has those vibes, but
The plantation,
now it's called the co-op instead of the plantation,
right?
and they've basically retooled the story as much as they can and changed the name of the resort and kind of said, okay, we're done.
This is all we can do without completely redoing it.
Right.
I find the theming of this resort, this side of this resort, I guess, to be so much less interesting than the Mardi Gras theme at French Quarter. What do
Agreed.
you think? That's what you think too?
Yes, there's
I'm
just something more vibrant and interesting about the Mardi Gras theme
Yeah.
as opposed to the quaint kind of rural setting of Dixie Landings. Um, Riverside, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just think that also you get the French Quarter in Disneyland is such a big part of the
That was
Disney
yeah,
story.
that was their plan. They wanted
Right.
it modeled after the Disneyland French Quarter to give
Cool.
us a taste of the French Quarter. Cool, yes. French Quarter is exciting. It also might not be somewhere you're comfortable taking your kids to in real life, so this is a cool way to get them to kind of, you know, have the fun experience without the debauchery.
Yeah. Yes. And there's also just more cool stuff. Yes.
Yes, there's
More
just
cool
more
stuff.
interesting things to
There's
see.
alligator statues. There's
Playing,
beignets,
yeah,
powdered
yes.
sugar all over the floor. There's
Those masks as decorations everywhere, I think, are really pretty
I
and
love the
fun.
decorations all over the resort.
I do
I
too.
think it's very like fun and whimsical.
Right.
And then also there's Scat Cat Lounge, which
Yes.
is a huge bonus in
Right.
my opinion because how cool to have a jazz venue
Right.
in your resort.
Yeah, and they obviously know that that's a good, popular, impressive lounge idea because they're putting it or already have put it on a cruise, one of their cruise ships, one of the new ones
It's
that's
a
coming out.
winner, that
It's a
idea.
winner, yeah. And I mean, beignets are obviously amazing.
And they're
So
right next door to each other, the lounge and the beignets.
yeah, yeah. To me, unless you need that fifth sleeper, which it appears that they have it at Riverside, but it doesn't appear that they have it at French Quarter,
Interesting.
unless you've seen otherwise.
Nope.
Maybe I mean maybe that's just a uh, a renovation that hasn't come yet to French Quarter. I'm not sure, but unless you need that, I just think that the theming of French Quarter is so much better. If I had to choose between the two, that's the one I would be choosing, unless you need that fifth sleeper.
Yeah, and honestly, the reason that I'm thinking you may have had an experience with dated rooms is because the last room renovations I could find on here were took place from 2003 to 2004, and then again from okay, that's not true. 2010 to 2011 is the last ones that I have on here, which
For Riverside?
for both because they do them both at the same time.
Oh, do they?
So in 2003 they did Riverside. In 2004 they did French Quarter. In 2010 they did one, and 2011 they did the other. I don't know which is which, but 2010 to 2011 was the last room renovations I have on here, which makes sense I think with the Princess and the Frog stuff. And then from 2012 to
I
2013
wonder if they did all of them because
they
I
did.
was not in a royal room, which is what the Princess and the Frog rooms are considered.
Oh, that's right. The royal, yeah. The royal rooms, I think, were actually more recent. I think they're separate.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that
Well,
makes sense.
if it was, I think I went in 2021. So
Okay.
if it had been 10 years since the last renovation, I don't know. Is that a good excuse for how bad it was? It was really bad, you guys.
No,
Like
no.
everything was bad.
I'm saying 10 years was too
A
long.
long, yeah, long
Too
time.
long.
Yeah.
I think that's part of probably the reason that you had
Yeah.
um such a rough time.
Right.
The royal guest rooms, like the Little Mermaid rooms, are like their own separate block of things that were introduced
Yeah.
later. But you were in
Right.
a
I was in a
non-royal room.
standard room.
So your room probably hadn't been updated since 2011.
Right.
Which is like, that's too long.
It is. I guess it is because it was terrible. It was
Yeah.
like everything was. Ugh, it was just not. It was not up to the Disney standard that I expect.
Yeah.
The royal guest rooms, which, like Jake just said, have their own like block of area, they're also a lot more expensive. They're more heavily themed
Right.
in a very cool way, but they're up in like the $400 a night range, where the standard rooms are. I've seen them in the high 200s, right here where I'm looking in January, it looks like we're in the mid 300s.
Gotcha.
Standard view 326 and a fifth sleeper 359.
Gotcha. How do you feel about the price point on these?
I think they're overpriced, especially these standard ones that are haven't been renovated.
Yeah.
No, wait, no, you're saying they still haven't been renovated?
I don't think they still have been renovated.
Yikers. Yeah, the royal rooms might be. That's very expensive to me.
Well, even if the royal rooms haven't been renovated, they are newer than these 2010, 2011 renovations.
Yeah.
So at least they're going to be slightly more current than.
They're very pretty, but they still have that shower curtain. What the, like I'm just so surprised by that.
Yeah, the shower curtain partition between the main room and the sink area is very questionable to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find that to be fitting in with the philosophy of having deluxe stylings at a more affordable price point. I think that's a shower curtain in between the main room and the sinks.
Yes.
That's very strange to me. But if it makes you feel better, the lobbies were renovated in 2012, and in 2016, the pool areas were renovated and enclosed.
Okay.
So you can take some solace of that with the price tag if you're booking there.
Enclosed.
I don't think I would recommend staying at Riverside. I don't think for any reason, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
French Quarter, it's got charm, even if the price point isn't necessarily, competitive with something like even Caribbean Beach. You can get a better deal.
The only thing I would say is if you or your child is Princess and the Frog obsessed, I would understand maybe the royal room option.
That is cool.
It does. They look very cool, but I mean, that's a pretty expensive, moderate resort. So,
yeah, that's the word on that, to be honest.
Yeah.
And honestly, French Quarter is one of the resorts that I have the most. I've only been once recreationally with Morgan.
Yeah.
But it is one of the most fun experiences I've had just popping in to visit a resort as a non-guest.
Yeah.
So if you're considering visiting as a non-guest, I do have to say I highly recommend taking the boat from Disney Springs.
And getting a beignet, for sure.
If you go at the right time, maybe Scat Cat Lounge. If not, just taking pictures
I
with
would
the alligators.
Say with the French Quarter, even though I like the French Quarter better because of all of the reasons that we've been going over, if they also haven't been renovated in 14 years, then maybe wait on that one too. Yeah, especially since Caribbean Beach is cheaper and has been recently renovated and has the Skyliner hub. I'm not really sure why this is a contender, to be honest.
Yeah, I have to agree.
So on to the last
one, Coronado Springs. Coronado Springs is interesting. It's in kind of an interesting spot where it's at, which is actually, there's a reason for that. It's really near to Blizzard Beach, the water park, because this plot of land was originally envisioned by Disney to be a connecting hotel to Blizzard Beach called the Alpine Resort.
Oh, wow.
That was going to have direct chairlift transportation to the Blizzard Beach water park.
Fascinating.
Yeah, right? I had no idea.
How cool.
I had never even heard of that.
I'm not really big into water parks, but
Me neither.
How cool does that sound?
Yes. Do you want to hear why they didn't do it?
Okay.
In the off-season, water parks are drained, which would ruin the illusion and the fantasy of the Alpine ski resort. So the Imagineers abandoned the Alpine.
There's almost no off-season for Disney water parks. That's very interesting.
Well, they're saying the Imagineer that was interviewed, I wish I had the quote right in front of me, but she was saying that because they require consistent draining and rehab, that they didn't think that it was a fair, they wanted to consider a different theme altogether.
Bummer. I like that theme.
I know, and it's got some historical relevance because Walt Disney was really into skiing and the ski lodge.
And he really wanted to do that ski lodge in California.
Right.
With the Country Bears.
So yeah, kind of a loss.
If you guys didn't hear that episode, I think it was where we did research on the Country Bear.
Yes, that is what it was. Frontierland, the Frontierland episode. Yeah, that was interesting. And so maybe we would have had some of those nods in this Alpine resort, but We'll never know because it was abandoned
I
as a
always like it
concept.
when they do something that they think would have made Walt happy.
Me
You know what I
too.
mean? It feels like it warms my heart.
Yes, and it's satisfying when a brand stays so true to the direction
Yeah.
that it was originally put in motion to meet. Um, so after this water park idea, they reconceived the resort as a convention-focused, moderate-price destination. So they decided that if they weren't going to have the conjoining water park idea, that they were going to appeal to an entire different kind of visitor.
Totally different.
Right. And at this point, the contemporary was the convention capital
Right.
of Walt Disney World.
Right.
So, anyway, now here we are with the 1997 opening of the Coronado. I didn't know it was that old, actually. 1997 is when this one opened. The lobby and the convention center were built to appear more upscale than the other moderates, specifically to appeal to the convention goers
Mm-hmm.
because of their sophisticated tastes.
Sure.
It was a blend of modern, striking Southwestern geometric design and fanciful Mexican imagery, and that was chosen to appear to the sophisticated convention goer with a splash of the expected Disney flair. And then the design inspirations ranged from American Disney artist Mary Blair to Spanish architect Antoni Gaudi. So the resort backstory is actually pretty interesting as well. It draws on the story of real life Spanish explorer Juan Francisco de Coronado, who, according to the resort story, the Coronado's descendants founded Coronado Springs after he, in real life, stumbled upon the ruins of a Mayan pyramid while he was searching for the seven cities of gold in 1569, and then the pyramid inspired the resort's pool. So they took this real life story of the explorer and said his descendants built this resort in tribute to his expedition, which is kind of like a big old backstory to give to
Yeah.
your resort.
Oh, I love that.
Fun.
And that pool is called the Dig Site Pool, and it's like one of my favorites. It's a 46-foot tall stepped Mayan pyramid cascading water.
Amazing.
Amazing.
This is the type of themed
Yeah.
element that we love to see in any
Yes.
Disney project ever.
Yeah. It's very that pool is very beautiful and yeah, themed just in the backstory. I love all of that. You know, that we're missing that with Caribbean Beach,
Mhm.
that Disney Imagineer backstory that like you find in
Yes.
I don't know.
And they tried to make one for Port Orleans, but it was just so they wouldn't get canceled.
Yeah, exactly.
But now with Coronado Springs, it is cool to have such an elaborate backstory.
Yes.
So you've got your really interesting inspirations there. And then when it opened, it was the first moderate resort with suites, a full convention hall, and a fine dining restaurant called Maya Grill, which differentiates the Coronado from the other moderates, kind of, in my opinion, putting it in its own little tier, especially when you consider what happened in 2019, which was that a 15-story tower was added to the resort, including a Spanish rooftop restaurant named Toledo and a bar called the Dahlia Lounge. It's called the Gran Destino Hotel Tower, and it took its name and its cues from the Salvador Dali Walt Disney surrealist short film collaboration called Destino. Um, the restaurant lobby and bus stop got moved to the tower when that renovation or that addition was completed. And in my opinion, it makes the resort like an entirely different thing than it was before.
It's weird. In a
It's changed it in
good
a
way, I
huge.
guess, but
Yeah.
it's weird because it's like they plopped a deluxe resort in the middle of a moderate resort and they're like, this is fine. We're going to let this make sense.
I wonder if that's what they were considering doing with Caribbean Beach, but they ended up just building another resort right next to it.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe.
Because it seems like what they were trying to do is let's add a deluxe option to this moderate
Yeah.
hotel, but instead Riviera ended up being DVC.
Yeah, oh man, it is
Complicated,
yes,
right?
complicated and a little confusing because I think like as a you know, person going on vacation, you're like think you might see a picture of a room in the Destino Tower and think, oh, I want to stay there, and then book a Coronado room and then be like, wait a minute.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I do think that's what they did. I think they basically put a deluxe hotel in the middle of a moderate, because that deluxe hotel is separately themed.
Mm-hmm.
It's got its own full service restaurant.
Yep.
The
And
costs,
bar.
yeah, and bar. The costs are of the rooms is far exceeds that of the regular Coronado rooms.
It's also strange to me that they moved the lobby into the tower.
Yeah.
Because if you walk into the tower and then you're told, actually, you're staying in the motel portion
Yeah,
of
yeah.
this, which is
drive
odd.
5 minutes and
Yes. And the motel portion has its own like central area with like restaurants and
and a closed lobby.
And where the lobby used to be, but that's not where you go to check into that. You still have to go to the tower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
It doesn't actually make sense.
You wish they would put the lobby back?
I do, and then I wish they would call them two separate things.
Me too.
Just to alleviate confusion.
I would be totally happy continuing to call what used to be the only Coronado, Coronado Springs,
right,
and then calling that the Grand Destino Tower.
That's
and
what,
letting it be.
Right. When we're referring to it and talking about it, that's what we're saying.
It's true.
Yeah, I think it's confusing for even those of us who understand it. So I think for somebody who doesn't come often, doesn't like spend their time researching or listening to us or whatever, it would be very confusing.
Well, now you know. And if you are going to book by yourself and you're not using Morgan's expert travel advisor help for some reason,
why? You don't want free t-shirts?
Yeah, first of all, why? Second of all, make sure you book appropriately, because they do, when you go to the Disney website and you look at the room rates for Coronado, it does differentiate. The first tier is non-tower rooms.
Right. Yeah, and if you just didn't keep going, you just wouldn't see that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So
because they even have suites there.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, they've got a one-bedroom suite. Yeah, an executive suite. And those are all the old Coronado.
Yes. The open walkway rooms. And then if you scroll down the page, then you'll find, and you'll know by the price tag, you'll find the tower rooms, which are their own separate pricing category, and for good reason, because it is kind of a whole different
thing. Yeah.
That being said, no matter what side you're staying on, they've got a bunch of pools and a bunch of...
Then you find the presidential suite, which is $2,600 a night.
Ooh, now you know you're in the tower.
Yeah.
The tower is beautiful, though. I do love all the flourishes. I love the design. Being up there in the Dahlia Lounge is beautiful. It's a beautiful...
Oh my gosh, we love it.
Beautiful space. They have that Destino short film playing in there, so you can watch it while you dine in the Dali-inspired room, and it is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
and
we love Toledo.
And we also love Toledo.
Yeah.
So we do love the Grand Destino Tower.
Yeah.
But it is very strange to have it attached to the...
And then the rest of Coronado feels like a true moderate. It's got like a sit-down restaurant that's just fine. It also happens to have a sit-down restaurant that's terrible. But we can kind of overlook that because they have another one.
Name them. Shame them.
Oh, okay. So the Maya Grill one is fine. It's good. It's good.
Fine dining.
Yeah. And then what's the other one called?
Something about...
It always sounds...
Telescopes or something?
No. Here, I'll look it up. I'm on the page. Give me just 2 seconds. Rick's Sports Bar and Grill. Terrible.
I forgot all about this, to be honest with you.
You blocked it out? I'm so impressed with your brain taking care of you like that.
It truly did.
Rick's Sports Bar and Grill is terrible. Don't waste your money. You'd be better off at the food court.
Yeah.
Maya Grill is good. But then it's not as good as Toledo. Toledo, which is in the Destino Tower, is fantastic. Now, they didn't add any pools or anything for the Destino Tower portion. So it's kind of like that's why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're building this deluxe resort in the middle of a moderate resort, but we don't want to build any more pools. so they're just going to share pools. Also, for both options, there's not transportation to or from anywhere else other than buses. So
that is the major downside of Coronado, in my opinion. Although something that you can rest assured knowing is that when they added the Grand Destino Tower in 2019, they also refurbished all of the guest rooms with updated wood floors, new beds, USB ports, flat screen TVs, Keurig coffee machines, new art, new color schemes, and renovated bathrooms.
Yeah.
So that's a full scale renovation done in 2019. So at least you're not sleeping in a room that
Good.
hasn't been updated for
It
over a
needed
decade.
it. Yeah, great. So I mean, and the rooms, I don't know which room I'm looking at.
On the Disney
Resort,
website.
hotel, yeah, room, bathroom. It doesn't say. It doesn't say whether I'm looking at a tower room or a regular room.
Very confusing.
That's messed up.
Because they are different.
They're different. I mean, maybe after the see that I know is a regular room. Because I've been there not that long ago. Unless the renovation that they did in 2019 made them the same, but I really
they
doubt
are
it.
different.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, we went to a friend who to visit a friend who was staying in the tower recently. They were beautiful. The tower rooms are gorgeous. We've also been to the rooms in the original portion of the hotel, and the renovated rooms there are also beautiful. I mean, I honestly,
they are.
I think if I were staying here, I would love staying in the regular old resort and taking advantage of the amenities in the Grand Casino Tower.
Yeah.
You know, the ultimate 2-for-1.
Yeah, better if you have a car or you're cool with just taking the bus everywhere.
Much better if you have a car, but yeah, the bus will get you where you need to go.
Honestly, some people don't even like the Skyliner. I always forget that. I'm thinking, oh, this is easy, convenient transportation, and some people aren't comfortable with it.
Well, it's no chairlift to the water park.
That would be worse.
That would be so much worse, right?
Yeah.
Scary, actually.
Yeah.
Before we head off here, and I asked Morgan to rank these.
Oh,
I did want to thank. No, you're doing it. I did. I'm just kidding. I did want to thank WDW Magazine, PortOrleans.org, which is a fan website, All Ears, and Mouse Planet, who beautifully summarized the histories of these resorts. I ended up going to a bunch of different websites to find facts and stuff, but these were the ones that kind of linearly laid out the way that these resorts have developed in their renovations and stuff. So that was super awesome in research, and I just wanted to thank them. But if you had to book one of these today, I can guess which one you picked, but I would like to hear.
Well, now I believe it or not, if you had asked me at the very beginning of this episode before you had talked about how some of them have been renovated and some of them hadn't, my answer would have been different.
Really?
Yes, because I have a really soft spot in my heart for French Quarter because we went there for our honeymoon.
That's what
but that was a long time ago. Yeah, but if it hasn't been renovated in 13 years, I'm sorry, but it's going to go down to the bottom.
Yeah.
The thematically, and because of that soft spot I have in my heart for it, because of an experience that I had, I want to put French Quarter up at the top. But because they haven't been renovated in so long, in addition to the fact that there's not Skyliner transportation, I think I'd have to put, obviously I'm going to put Riverside at the bottom. I had a terrible experience. They haven't been renovated recently enough. There's not awesome transportation. So that Riverside would be at the absolute bottom of my list. And then, unfortunately, I guess I'd have to put French Quarter until it's renovated. As soon as it's renovated, it's going to fly back to the top of my list. But so that's where those two are going to go. And I'm most excited now to try Caribbean Beach because I'm a Little Mermaid fanatic.
Ooh.
Little Mermaid was my favorite movie when I was a kid. I watched it thousands of times probably. And they've got the Little Mermaid rooms now, in addition to being the hub of the Skyliner. That makes me most excited to try that one.
Okay.
And then after that would be Coronado.
I do have some good news in that it does look like some rooms will be renovated this year from May to November at Port Orleans French Quarter, in addition to the minor renovation that they received in 2018. So that was like a light renovation or refurbishment, it looks like, but they will be
when they say that, it usually just means soft.
Literally.
Yeah, so it's bedding and carpet if there's carpet, but I don't know.
And sometimes furniture, but not even necessarily that.
Right.
But it looks like this year they actually will be renovated, which is really good to hear because it is a beautiful property, and it's a shame that some of the rooms ended up being unrenovated for so long.
Right.
But yeah, you can look forward to that. So Caribbean Beach, you're excited to try the Little Mermaid rooms?
I'm excited to try it, yeah.
I would just love to also experienced the pirate room, so
Yeah.
it'd be cool to hear your
Compare.
side by side. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
I
Well,
really
there you
liked the
have it.
pirate room. It was cute.
Yeah, I do miss. I used to see pictures of them all the time, and I thought it was. I always think it's nice when they have like really decked out themes
Yes.
for the hotel rooms
Yeah.
because that's what you're going for, right? The fun
Yeah.
of Disney.
Right.
I know it's not for everyone, but having those options available is
I
awesome.
bet it's for the majority.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You're spending
Yeah.
all your vacation money on a Disney vacation. You're probably the type of person that likes Disney theming.
Yeah, big splashy stuff.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Splashy, like a pirate. All right, there you have it. We're done talking about the moderates. This conversation was more than moderately interesting. And we hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you did, then we would love to have you not only follow us, subscribe to the show on YouTube or your podcast platform, but also to follow us on social media because we're on Instagram and TikTok at Neverland Navco, where you can find us posting about resorts, park adventures, trivia, dining, shopping, anything Disney World related that you can imagine. We're posting about it every day at Neverland Navco.
Yep, and you can also check out our Etsy store, which is called Neverland Navigation on Etsy, where if you send us a message and say, hey, my favorite ride is Pirates of the Caribbean, or I would love a Coronado Springs type shirt, we can send you some options and get something custom for you. And it's really not custom priced either. And that's also where you get your free gift if you let me help you book your next vacation. And if you want to do that, you can send me a message on Etsy, or you can email me at neverlandnavigationco@gmail.com.
All right. Well, it looks like our chairlift is here to take us to the water park, so we will see you on our next adventure.